What's going on, guys? Rodrigo here. This is episode, I believe, 4 of the 10 that we're going to do about my first 100 days as an agent. And probably not going to be 10 minutes. My goal when we first started this up was to have 10-minute episodes. And well, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in the show, but I found that there's a very specific reason why that I'm not getting to these 10-minute lengths. But before we even get into that, wanted to, well, A, thank you so much for tuning in, and then B, give you an update on the listing, since that's, for a lot of reasons, the most exciting component of these first 100 days so far. Where we're at is we got past the due diligence period with the listing. Part of getting past the due diligence period is that we have to have a price adjustment. And lo and behold, there is a lot more paperwork. And by a lot, I mean 2 pieces of paper. It's just, I really have noticed that, and I think I've talked about this probably on every single episode. Every time you do something, when you're representing people and you're not doing things on your behalf, it just takes more paperwork, more signatures, because there needs to be a good paper trail to follow to justify, price changes and things like that. And so, it's been good practice to just it's been a good reminder that keeping records and having clarity on what you're doing is important. And it's also been a reminder as to what's the benefits of working for yourself, or, when you're looking at deals, is because you can make decisions quicker, you can adjust on the fly. And if you are talking to another decision maker and it's decision maker and decision maker talking, you can come up to agreements quicker. And for me, one thing I do like is there is less paperwork, because things can be hammered out via text or via email. And if you trust the other person that you're working with, then you don't need to have all these safeguards in place. And I totally get why there are all these safeguards in place when you're representing other folks. Obviously, you've got a fiduciary responsibility to do the best for them and to protect them and make sure that, we limit downside as much as possible. So again, it makes sense, but man, it has been a really good reminder for me of why I enjoy the investing side so much, because it's quicker and I like that. So listing's going well. We're still all things considered, if it goes smoothly, we're on schedule to close at the closing date. I forget if I'm allowed to share when that is or not, so we're not going to share it right now. So there's not much to go on the listing side. I mean, that's pretty much it. And that kind of leads me to talking about why there hasn't been as much content. I'm going to talk about the ups and downs so far that I've experienced, or the pros and the cons of being an agent. But before we get there, why hasn't there been a lot of updates? Why have the videos been on the shorter side? And frankly, it's because, well, this isn't my focus. And my focus is on the buying, selling, renting side for projects that I'm personally involved in, and being an agent takes away from that. And although there are, they marry themselves really well, and there's a lot of overlap, and it's congruent businesses. If I had to choose only one business to be on, I'd be choosing the investing side all day long. And so there hasn't been a huge focus on developing the real estate agent side of things, because I like the other more. And so, of course, any business that kind of comes together as a real estate agent that quote unquote falls into my lap, I'll obviously continue to do, and I'm learning how to enjoy it. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But that's why there hasn't been a ton of updates, because there's not that much going on. A lot of what's happening has been on the investing side. End of year historically for us has been a busy time, and this year has been no different. And so that's where energy and focus has been. So let's talk about the ups, the downs, the pros, cons, however you want to talk about it. I think the last video I mentioned how much paperwork is involved in being an agent. And so I've been very intentional. Most of my focus as far as being an agent has been on how to minimize this paperwork, and this feels like a time vacuum when it comes to listing and again, getting things signed, filling things out, etc. And there's a couple of different services. I talked to couple of different people who provide these services who you can hire on a transaction by transaction basis to, fill out your listing, coordinate with sellers, buyers, different agents, title companies, attorneys for closings, and kind of offload a lot of that work. I can assure you, if I do another listing, I will be working with them, because I don't even remember how much it was. I think it was $300 or $400 per listing. They kind of offload all of this work, and I can't tell you how excited I am about not having to do that again. One missing piece, though, that I have not been able to find, and if anybody has a solution to this, please let me know, because I do need help on this, is if you have a listing, somebody still has to take phone calls and answer questions about the listing, or receive offers and organize all this paperwork, and which offer is better and compare them, etc. I mean, I don't mind doing that, but when it's such a hot market, I don't want to list something and then get 30 phone calls and have to answer these questions. So as far as I know, the only solution to that is co-listing or hiring somebody to answer all of those. I'd love to think that there's a third solution out there. Maybe you can hire somebody on a transaction by transaction basis to handle phone calls and inquiries. Obviously you're not representing the sellers, just offloading, almost being like an assistant for whoever the listing agent is. If this business doesn't exist out there for Asheville area, can somebody please start it? I'd love to be your first client if that's a possibility. So that's the big kind of missing piece of the puzzle right now, in my opinion, for anybody who, I don't know, maybe some people love fielding all the calls. It's not something that I loved. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. So that's kind of the missing piece. I guess that's the up and down. That's really the only piece of the puzzle that I'm trying to improve for the next listing, is getting somebody who's really good on the paperwork, can run through all of that, coordinate with the photographer, coordinate with the measurement folks, coordinate with the sellers, fill out the paperwork, etc. That part I found a solution for. Now the solution that I want to find for the next is who's going to take the phone calls, pre-screen all the offers, and put everything into an easy to read format, so that when you present the offers to the sellers, that they can make an easy decision. So that's where we're at, and hopefully maybe somebody else, if you're listening to this and you want to list your house, be happy to make you listing number 2. But in the meantime, we're just focusing on the buying, selling, and renting side of the business, and we'll see what happens between now and 10 days. So today is the 3rd of December. We were supposed to record this on the 27th of November. So it's gonna end up being like 120 days and 10 videos, but that's okay. It's been a fun project, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed following this process. And again, please, if you know what the solution is for that gap on who's taking the calls and pre-screening all that information, please let me know. See you all on the next one. Talk to you in 10 days. Take care.